So good morning, everyone. My name is Lori Collette. I work in the School of Graduate Studies, and this is our third orientation session for 2020 that we're doing virtually. I have with me here today a couple of my colleagues from the Graduate Studies office. Erin Davidson is here, who will help with any of the questions that have to do specifically with grad students. She's a registration officer in our office. And then Jessie Arawanto, she is administration and applications, admissions, recruitment type work, similar to myself. The focus of the session is all about international students, welcoming them to Trent, answering their questions that they might have in this unique year that we're having. So I should say before I introduce Paula and Jessica that are going to do this presentation, who are both from international, that the format of this will be similar to our other ones. We will be having questions come in through the chat, and I will do my best to kind of monitor those by Jess and Erin and perhaps the other Jess as well, or whoever can kind of keep an eye on those, but we'll do our best to answer those as we go. And if not, we'll cover them at the end. So I'd like to introduce Paul Longhurst from the International Office. He's an international student advisor for Trent, and Jessica Evans, who works alongside Paul doing some programming for international students. They are going to do today's session. So welcome, Paul and Jessica. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks so much, Laurie. It's nice to be here. And good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world right now, everyone. It's great to see some of your names. I recognize some of you from emails, and I look forward to meeting you all in person eventually. So my colleague Jessica is with me here, and as Laurie mentioned, she and I work in the international office. And what I do in my role there is I'm the international student advisor. So I have an immigration advising license. So if you have any questions about your legal status in Canada, study permit, working, post-graduation plans, I'm the guy we can talk to. I also support primarily undergraduate students with their academic support, as well as helping with the transition to life in Canada and any sort of general inquiries about life as an international student at Trent. So if you ever have any questions, obviously you can ask them today, but if you email international@trentu.ca, myself or my colleagues will get back to you quite promptly.
Great. Thank you for the introduction, Lori. My name is Jessica Evans, and I'm the International Student Program Assistant for Trent International, and I support students with their transition to life at Trent and to their new life in Canada. So I can support you with any sort of transition questions, and I'll meet you throughout the year at different transition events and community building events. And I host a variety of workshops throughout the year, but I also can help you with any general inquiries that you have about Trent University or just being a student at Trent. And you can contact me directly if you'd like, and my email is there at jevans, Jevans, @trentu.ca. So today in the session, we're going to cover a variety of topics. First, we'll talk a little bit about Trent International and who we are. We will answer your long-awaited immigration questions. We'll talk a little bit about safe arrival for the folks that are planning on arriving in Canada, health insurance, a little bit about orientation and transition and events for the year. And at the end of the session, we will answer some of your questions. So as Lori mentioned, please feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box. So a little bit about Trent International. We are the central support office for all international students at Trent. So we support graduate, undergraduate students and ESL students, but also study abroad students. We also support the internationalization of the entire campus, including curriculum research, study abroad, experiential learning opportunities. And we also help foster cross-cultural sharing on campus. And hopefully you'll learn that we are your home away from home, and we're excited to eventually meet you on campus, but we are operating virtually as well. Our office is located in Champlain College 302. And as I mentioned, most of our services are operating virtually right now from 8:30 until 4:30. EDT, but our physical office is actually opening. We'll have just a few staff on campus from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. in September. So if any of you are planning on coming to campus, our office will be open and will be available to answer any questions that you might have. And as Paul mentioned, our email is international@trentu.ca if you have any questions. So some of the services that Trent International includes is immigration and academic advising. That's what Paul does. Health insurance administration, and we'll talk a little bit about this in the presentation. We also have study abroad and global learning opportunities. We have an English as a second language program. We also have emergency bursaries and supplies. We also give out many different international scholarships and awards. And then in my role, we have international student-specific workshops to help you with your transition to life in Canada. We have community building events, pre-arrival support, and orientation and transition support. So we do a lot, and I'm going to pass things over to Paul, who's going to talk a little bit about immigration.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah, so immigration, it's the big topic right now for international students. As you're all aware, we're in the midst of a global pandemic, which has caused a lot of changes to the ability that individuals have to move across national borders. So I'm hoping that today I'll be able to answer all of your pressing questions about how this impacts you and what your options are given the current situation. Before I get into the specifics of Canada's immigration response to the COVID-19 pandemic, I'd like to sort of start with the basics, talk for a few minutes about what exactly is a study permit and other documents you need as an international student, and as well as how you're going to arrive safely in Canada, how studying as an international student online may impact your immigration plans, as well as working options, family visiting, and then last but certainly not least, how to meet with me if you have questions to talk about this further. So thanks, Jess. We can change the slide. So for those of you who don't know, a study permit is the legal document that defines your status in Canada. It defines your status as a temporary resident, which means that you are legally authorized to live in Canada as a resident for a temporary basis, literally. Usually the duration of your studies plus 3 months. Every international student who's studying in a program that's 6 months or longer is required to have a study permit to study in Canada. So everyone that's in this meeting right now, all of our international students at Trent, with the exception of some exchange students, are required to have a study permit before you can study in Canada. Really important note, it seems obvious, but a lot of people overlook it. When you get your study permit, please note the expiry date. It may not happen after your graduation date because maybe your studies will take longer, maybe your passport will expire first. Please note that date, mark it on your calendar, and then I always suggest to students to go back in time about 3 or 4 months before it expires and just email Paul, because I can help you with with making sure you extend it prior to it expiring. It's not a complicated process, but you have to do it before it expires, obviously. In addition to your study permit, you're all either going to get a temporary resident visa, so a TRV, or an electronic travel authorization, an ETA. It depends on your country of citizenship. Most of you will get a TRV, which is a stamp that looks like this image on the screen. It'll be in your passport. And what this is, it's an entry document. So it's a document that allows you to actually literally cross the border into the country. They can be for a single entry or multiple entries, although I suspect all of you will get a multiple entry visa at this point in time. There are some country-specific requirements. Countries that Canada has a very close relationship with, the United States being first and foremost, don't have visas the same as this. We have an electronic code that's put into your passport. So just be mindful that when you are applying for your initial study permit and when it gets approved, you will also be approved for one of these two documents. So you need both to enter the country, and you don't have to apply separately for it for your initial one. It'll be issued at the same time as your study permit. So here's the hot topic. Can I come to Canada? Everyone wants to know what happens during COVID. Basically, the federal government of Canada has decided to close the Canadian border to all non-essential travel. What defines non-essential is the key question. Well, amongst other things, it includes international students who received a study permit or were approved for a study permit after March 18th. So if you were issued your study permit on March 19th or to today, essentially, unfortunately, you're not able to enter the country at this time. If you happen to have received your study permit before March 19th, the good news is that you may be able to enter the country right now during the travel ban. The exemptions to the travel ban are that someone's travel is deemed essential or non-discretionary by a border agent. And we're going to talk in more detail about what exactly is essential travel or non-discretionary travel. To make a long story short, essentially, there has to be a valid reason why you have to be in Canada, and that could consist of pre-existing ties. You know, if you were here last year and you're coming back in, if you have an apartment, if you have a job, if you have in-person classes, if you have a student leadership position, for example, those are all reasons that could be deemed essential, and you would be able to re-enter the country. So basically, the most important thing to know is the date on your study permit. If it's March 19th or later, unfortunately not right now, you can't enter, but March 18th or sooner you can. And I should mention that that's relevant and current as of today. This date hasn't changed since March 19th, but given that the pandemic situation is so fluid globally, it's plausible that these restrictions will change, be loosened, or tightened accordingly as this unfolds over the coming months. Our anticipation now is that the border will reopen to international students with study permits at any point of validation before the winter term, before January. But obviously that's subject to seeing how the pandemic situation is progressing around the world. So that hopefully gives you a bit of an overview of what your options are as a study permit holder. We sent an email to all international students at all levels a few weeks ago, and it includes really specific information about arriving safely in Canada if you're eligible to do that. It would have come from Trent International. You should check your Trent email address to find out if you received it. And obviously, if you can't find it, just email international@trentu.ca and we'll send you another copy. It is a fairly extensive document, and it spells out Trent's safe arrival protocol for international students who are coming into the country. It helps you to formulate a plan for re-entering safely, because when you get to the border, you're going to have to explain to the agent a few key things. One, where you're going to be serving your 14-day mandatory quarantine. Anyone entering the country now has to isolate in quarantine for 14 days. You'll also have to explain how you're going to get from the airport to your place where you're living. You're going to have to explain how you're going to get food and basic supplies during the 14 days, because during the quarantine, you literally can't leave your home. And the border agent will probably ask you why the purpose of your travel is non-discretionary. So having the letter that's included in the email that we sent you will be useful, because it explains our Trent Forward plan and our mixed delivery model of course delivery, as well as what resources that we're going to have open on campus in the fall. So it's important to read that thoroughly if you plan on coming, and taking the time to, I would suggest, literally write out your safe arrival plan so that you can present it to the border agent with your passport and study permit to make as a compelling case as possible about why you should be allowed to enter the country. The other thing that was included in the email we sent you was a link to a survey that Trent International is coordinating. We're going to share the results of grad studies. And the purpose of that survey is to help us get a better understanding of where you are in the world and what your plan is. Because we have so many international students and everyone has their own individual circumstances, it's really beneficial for us to know if you are currently in Canada, for example, if you're abroad but you plan on coming, if you are abroad and your study permit hasn't yet been approved or something, and we can we can tailor your support to reflect your situation. So please fill out that survey. It really helps us know what's going on. Otherwise, you know, we're having to give you as broad a base of information as possible, which is challenging to know what is best to do with that much information. So as I mentioned, the Safe Arrival Protocol is your guide to helping you prepare to arrive in Canada. I know this doesn't apply to all of you, but for those of you who it does, it's really important that you spend some time reading that email we sent you, and also it's also on the Trent Coronavirus FAQ page. I should say that even if you're not able to come in September, you know, we strongly hope that you're able to come for January or a subsequent term, maybe May or maybe next September. It's quite possible we're still going to have these same sort of measures in place. So please read this document and help you plan your reentry. There's a link below to the Safe Arrival Protocol. And I should say, if you're coming into the country and you need to get from the airport to your residence, of course you can have a friend pick you up, that's fine. You have to exercise proper social distancing and wear a mask in the car, but there's nothing wrong with that. But alternatively, we do have a company called Century Transportation, which is running private shuttles that you can book, and they will deliver you from the airport. They'll pick you up at the arrivals gate and drop you off at wherever your residence will be for your quarantine period. So, this is a related question that a lot of students have been asking me, and hopefully this helps put your mind at ease. So obviously, because there are many different programs, every program has different options in terms of studying online. So always refer to the Faculty of Grad Studies or your specific program for clarity on what your options are. But from an immigration perspective, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, has changed the rules this year to allow international students to begin their studies online without negatively impacting your future immigration plans. So essentially, once you submit your application for your study permit online and you pay your fee, you'll be approved in kind of what we call stage one of the study permit approval process. So it's approval in principle. Once you submit this, you'll get a notification in your IRCC web portal, and it will verify that they've received your application. And from the day you receive that, essentially you can start studying online full-time, and all of that time will count towards your eligibility for a work permit after you graduate, for example. And that's regardless whether you're abroad at home and studying online. So you won't be able to get your study permit fully approved until the biometrics office and the visa issuing offices in your country reopen. Many have been closed for obvious reasons due to the pandemic, and some are reopening now in certain parts of the world. I know in China, most of the offices have reopened. I think India is still mostly closed. So as they reopen, you'll receive an email inviting you to make an appointment to provide your biometrics, which is your fingerprints and a photo of your face. And once that's done, essentially you'll be approved quite quickly. They've guaranteed that they'll expedite the processing time for your final version of the study permit. Once you receive your study permit, once Canada reopens the border, you'll be able to come and commence your classes at the subsequent term. So the short answer is, if your program allows it, you can study online from home and there'll be no negative implications to your immigration status. So that's good news. A related topic has to do with working. I know many of you either are hoping to work as part of your education, maybe doing a TA or a research position, or you want to work a part-time job either on or off campus. Well, the short answer is that you need to have a full study permit to have working conditions approved, because your working conditions will be actually noted on your study permit. Typically, they allow for an international student to work full-time on campus, essentially, and up to 20 hours per week as a part-time job off campus. So until your study permit is approved in full, you won't be able to work while abroad. if your study permit is approved in full, you can work from abroad or from within Canada without distinction. In Canada, we have a federal government document that's called a social insurance number, an SIN. And what it is it's the document that allows an employer to hire you and to collect your income tax and to submit it to the government at the end of the year, for amongst other things. So it's a requirement to work, and you need it to start a job legally. So basically, once your study permit is approved, you can apply for a social insurance number online and be issued the number fairly quickly, actually, and then you could start working. So the working option really depends on your study permit status. If you're not sure if you can legally work, feel free to send me an email, international@trent.ca, and I'll, with a bit of context as to where your study permit processing is at in time, and I'll let you know whether you can work or not. Actually, I basically already covered this slide, but yeah, just to remind you, your working conditions will be noted on your study permit. Sometimes they define where you can and can't work, and they definitely define the number of hours you can work. Many of you are also very interested in the topic of your post-graduation work permits. So essentially what this means for those of you who don't know is that after an international student graduates, they're eligible to change their status from a temporary resident who's a student to a temporary resident who's a worker. And the way this is done is through requiring what is called a post-graduation work permit, a PGWP. Essentially what this is it's an open work permit that would allow you to remain in Canada and work essentially any job. It's an open work permit. And once you accrue a certain number of hours, 1 year full-time work, essentially, you would be eligible to apply for a permanent residency pathway if you wanted to do that. Otherwise, you can just continue to gain Canadian work experience and use that to build your career and your portfolio. So the best news about this option to study online with your study permit stage 1 approval is that the time you spent studying online will count towards your work permit. The question that I get maybe the most about postgrad work permits is how long will it be valid for? The short answer is that if you're a graduate student, so if you're doing a master's or a PhD program, and your program is a minimum of 16 months or longer, you will receive a 3-year post-graduation work permit, which is the longest PGWP that's available. If you're doing a program that's shorter than 16 months, but longer than 8 months, you'll receive a PGWP that corresponds with the number of months that you were in your class. So if you do a 12-month program, you get a 12-month permit. This is another popular question, and I mean, it'll become more relevant after you're here for a year or two, and you may want to invite some of your family to visit you in Canada. This is great because your family are a bunch of individuals who are coming, you know, with their own history and their own situation. They're going to have to apply for their own immigration documents, so their own visitors visas most of the time. But to support their application, you can also provide them with what's called a letter of invitation. A letter of invitation basically explains your relationship to the individual who's applying. It explains that you're going to be hosting them, where they're going to be staying, how they're going to pay for things, when they're going to leave, and your relation to them in some detail. I'm often asked to write these letters, and as much as I love meeting your families, I can't write these letters because I'm not able to invite your family and vouch for them. This is really on you to make a case about why mom or dad or your brother or sister are going to come and visit you, and to make a convincing argument to the border officer that, you know, they're going to come, they're going to stay, have a great time, and then eventually return home at the end of their visit. Immigration Canada, which this link below here has a sample letter of invitation. I suggest students essentially use that template and put in their own information, and it will be sufficient. Alternatively, if you write a letter, you can email it to international@trentu.ca and just say, "Attention, Paul," and I'll happily review it, make sure that it's not missing anything that's obvious, and I'll give you some feedback. So that's how that will work once you get here. If you want to meet with me to talk about an immigration issue at length, I have a calendar of appointments available essentially every week. I meet with for half an hour, unless it's a very complex issue, then I'm happy to talk for longer. And you can book an appointment with me through the Student Experience Portal. It's a website that has a bunch of resources for all of our students. The career space job board is there, co-curricular record is there, as well as some on-campus appointment booking options, including with me. So if you log into trentu.ca/SEP, you sign in with your MyTrent username and password, and then basically you look for the appointment booking section about immigration advising or international student advising specifically, and you book an appointment at whatever time works for your schedule that's available. Typically, I like to meet face-to-face with students. However, I know that right now it's not a possibility, so I'm meeting on Zoom and it's working very well. If Zoom isn't an option in your country, you can just let me know when you book your appointment. There's a comment section and we can meet through some other option. Skype, WhatsApp, email, whatever works. Phone, it's fine with me too. And yeah, just a reminder, when you book an appointment, if you can give me or anyone else you're booking with for that matter, as much information prior to the meeting as possible, it helps us do our homework. So if you're talking about, you know, a study permit issue or a working issue, add that in the comment box, and then I'll do a little bit of homework to have some information prepared prior to our meeting. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Paul. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about health insurance, and some of this information is not going to be relevant to everyone, but it will be relevant to you eventually. When you do come to Canada, you will have comprehensive health insurance. So I'll go through a little bit about the health insurance options and also an option to opt out if you're not going to be in Ontario. So all international students at Trent have two types of health insurance that work together to give you very comprehensive coverage. So there's the University Health Insurance Plan, which is called UHIP, and the Student VIP Supplemental Benefits. So I will go through both and what they cover. So UHIP, the University Health Insurance Plan, covers medical doctors, hospital services, emergencies, laboratory tests, and this is limited to Ontario only. If you want to read a little bit more about the coverage details, you can find information on the UHIP website. And then the Student VIP Supplemental Benefits covers prescription medicine, eyeglasses, dental care, and paramedical services. And this coverage has limits, so it's important to take a look and see what the limitations are. And you can find more information on the Student VIP website. So what is UHIP? This is the mandatory health insurance for international students. So all international students in Ontario have to enroll in health insurance, and this is the health insurance that's associated with the university. It provides equal coverage as Ontario residents. So I'm a resident of Ontario, and international students that are enrolled in UHIP will have the same coverage as me. It's provided through Sun Life Insurance. So when you receive communication about this insurance, it will typically come from Sun Life Insurance. So if you see Sun Life Insurance in your Trent inbox, it is information related to your health insurance. And UHIP is administered by Trent International. So we have a UHIP administrator that can answer any questions that you might have. So Trent's policy number is here, it's 050150, and your member ID is TU, so Trent University 00 plus your student number. And I'll show you what that means. Basically, that's information that will be on your UHIP card. So you don't have to memorize this. You don't need to know it. It will be posted on your UHIP card, which I'll show you an example of in a few seconds here. So enrollment for UHIP, all international students that are registered in classes will be enrolled in UHIP. And you also have an option to add family or dependents. So if you have children or if you have a spouse here, you can email uhip@trentu.ca and we can help you get them enrolled in UHIP as well. So as I mentioned, your coverage card, your UHIP card, will come from Sun Life Financial directly. And I've posted the email below here. This is the email that you will receive from this address, and often it ends up in your spam folder. So take a look at your spam folder within your Trent email to make sure that your UHIP coverage card hasn't ended up in spam. So this is what the email will look like, and you'll receive a PDF form of your card. It won't be a physical copy because students lose them often. This way you can print it out as much as you'd like, but you can also just show a PDF on your phone when you show up at the hospital or clinic. So this is an example of the card that you'll receive. And again, it does have the policy number and your member ID, so you don't need to remember that. And as I mentioned, we do have a UHIP plan administrator, and you can email them at uhip@trentu.ca if you have any questions or if you'd like to add your family members or dependents. So then the other coverage that international students are enrolled in is the student VIP. So this is supplemental coverage, and it works in conjunction with UHIP to provide very comprehensive coverage. So UHIP covers the doctor's visit, and student VIP covers the prescription. And it's administered by the Trent Central Student Association, which is a student-run association at Trent University. You can download your card at studentvip.ca/plan card. So on the website, it will ask you to input your name and your student ID, and then you can download a PDF form of the card there. And if you have questions, you can email info@studentvip.ca. So as I mentioned with UHIP, it's Trent International that administers the coverage, and with the student VIP enrollment, it's actually our Central Student Association that administers it. But if you have any questions, you can email international@trentu.ca, and we're happy to direct you to the correct resource on campus. So this is what the student VIP card looks like. You can also pick up a physical card, I believe, still in the Trent Central office when you do come to campus. Some students prefer a physical card, so that's up to you. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's mandatory for students that are living in Ontario to have health insurance. We recognize that this is a unique year and some students will not be in Ontario. So what we're doing currently is that all students that are registered in courses will automatically be enrolled in UHIP by August 31st, 2020. So you'll be enrolled but not billed. And we will provide an opt-out period, which is until September 10th. For students that are not in Ontario, you have an option to opt out. So let me explain a little bit about that. So, and we're also going to be providing an opt-in period for students that arrive in Canada before August 31st. So as I mentioned, all students, all international students will automatically be enrolled in UHIP by August 31st. If you arrive in Canada prior to August 31st, say you arrive on August 10th, it's important that you get enrolled in the university health insurance plan when you arrive or by the time you arrive. So we have a form on your MyTrent portal where you can opt to enroll early. And I've just posted it here. So it's on the MyTrent portal under the support tab under health and wellness, and you'll find the university health insurance plan early opt-in form. And the next form, as I mentioned, is the opt-out form. So if you're not going to be in Ontario, you have until Thursday, September 10th to opt out of health insurance for this term. And again, the form can be found on your MyTrent portal under the support tab, and it's called the Mandatory in Ontario Health Insurance Plan Opt-out. And if you don't opt out, you'll be enrolled in UHIP and charged the mandatory in Ontario UHIP fee. So if you have any questions about this, please feel free to email us at international@trentu.ca, or if you have questions specific to UHIP itself, you can email uhip@trentu.ca. So obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, and you know, there may be times that students are feeling unwell, and what do you do when you get here? So for anyone that is here, we do have the Trent Student Health Services, and they have a phone number. They're still operating in person, but they would prefer if you give them a call first. So if you're feeling unwell and you'd like to see a doctor, you'd like to at least consult with a nurse or a physician to see if you should go into the hospital or come into the clinic, you can give them a call here, or they also have an email, which is clinicnursehealthservices@trentu.ca. And they're operating within office hours, and I think they're operating from 8:30 to 4:30. But if you're feeling unwell after hours, in Ontario, we have something called telehealth, which is a phone service where you can speak to a nurse directly, and they can let you know what your next steps are or what your options are. So the number is posted here. And as I mentioned, please don't walk into a clinic without calling first. Just to, you know, this is a precaution to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. So if you're able to give a call first to let them know that you're on your way in, or if you need care. And then in Canada, we use 911 for emergencies. So if you have any sort of medical emergency, you can call 911 and they'll direct you from there. And if you have any questions about COVID-19 and Trent's response to COVID-19, or about the situation in Peterborough itself, these are some resources here. You can go to the trentu.ca/coronavirus FAQ, and you can check out peterborough.publichealth.ca. So, part of my portfolio is helping plan orientation for international students. So I have posted here a little brief overview of what orientation is going to look like this year. So typically we host Trent International orientation between the 6th and 12th of September. It's a really fun week. It's an opportunity for you to learn about Trent International, to learn about what to expect throughout the year, but also an opportunity to meet other international students and senior students that you know, are really engaged and involved in the international community at Trent. So I've posted here some different events or sessions that will be happening throughout the week, but I'll give you specific details by sending out an email in the coming weeks. So do check your Trent email for more information and for an invite and links to these different sessions. But on Tuesday, September 8th, we have the Trent International Open House. We typically have always hosted this in person, but now we're hosting it virtually. So it's basically a day for students to drop in and ask any questions you might have. If you have questions about all of the information I just gave you about health insurance, or if you want to speak with Paul, if you have any immigration questions, if you want to learn about how to get involved with other student groups on campus, you can feel free to drop into our open house. On Wednesday, September 9th, I'm doing a session on academic expectations in Canada, just to give an overview of what can you expect from your professors, or what can you expect in a classroom. You know, how should you interact with your professors and classmates? And then in the afternoon, we're having something called World Fest. So this is an opportunity to meet the different international and regional groups on campus. So we have the Trent International Student Association, and they represent all international students at Trent. And then we have 7 regional groups that basically represent the whole, the world. So it's a great opportunity, and we'd love for the graduate students to come out to this event as well and just learn what the different student groups are planning to do this year and how to get involved with them. On Thursday, September 10th, we're having a virtual game night. So if you like to play Pictionary, or if you want to, meet other students and have a good time, please join us for this event as well. And then to end the week, which is what we always do at Trent International, is end the week or orientation week with dancing. So we're having a Trent International dance party. So please come. Bring your dance moves, or you can just come and watch and enjoy some great music. So again, check your Trent email for an invite to TIO. Something also coming up very soon is a World Trivia Night. So the Trent Graduate Student Association and Trent International, and basically me, are hosting World Trivia to welcome our new international graduate students. So you may have already received an email from the TGSA about this event. It's going to be hosted on Wednesday, August 26th at 1 p.m. And as I mentioned, check your email for an invitation from the TGSA. And in the coming days, there will also be an invite from Trent International. As I mentioned, another part of my portfolio is helping international students with their transition to life in Canada. So we have a series called Life Under the Maple Tree, and it's to support international students in their transition to life in Canada and life at post-secondary university. So some of the topics that will be covered are academic expectations in Canada, which I already mentioned, adjusting to life in Canada, staying connected in a virtual context, winter preparedness, preparing for winter, pathways to permanent residency for anyone who wants to stay in Canada, marketing your international experience on your resume, and the schedule for these transition events will be sent to your Trent email by September 10th. So keep checking your Trent email. And as a response to the pandemic and not being on campus, we do have a virtual front desk. So if you have a question as an international graduate student, if you want help booking an appointment, you can come to our virtual front desk and meet someone face-to-face. During the month of August, the virtual front desk is operating from 9:30 to 12 EDT. And starting in September, we will be operating a full working day, so from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. EDT. So you can find more information on our Facebook page, or you can send us an email and we'll forward you the link at international@trentu.ca. When you do enter the virtual front desk, make sure, Paul already sort of mentioned this, give us as much information as possible. So if you're a graduate student, identify yourself so that we can give you the best service as possible. And another way to stay connected with Trent International, to hear about different sessions or workshops that we're doing or community building events, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook. For both, the handle is Trent U International. We also have a Trent University International Class of 2020 official group that you can join on Facebook if you use Facebook and you like Facebook. We often post information that's relevant to new students in that page as well. There's a lot of undergraduate students in that group, but you can feel free to join the group as a graduate student as well. And as always, our email is here, international@trentu.ca. So that's all of the information Paul and I have, but we would love to answer some of your questions now.
Paul, sorry guys, I did notice that there was a question early on there, Paul, when you were talking about the biometrics. It was actually a question I had as well. Mohammed was wondering if you have any sort of timelines after their biometrics is done, how long the permit takes after that. You said it was expedited, but do you have any idea? He said he did it yesterday in Amman. I don't know if I'm saying that country right, but do you
that's a good question. So IRCC has indicated that they're going to expedite the processing of these final stage study permits, but they also said they can't guarantee a time because but different visa processing offices are at different states of reopening. Anecdotally, based on having spoken to several students who are at this stage, they're getting a response within 2 weeks. for their biometrics, which is pretty good. That said, it may take longer. You know, the processing times are very slow right now. So.
And Jess, maybe, did you see the other question there? As an international student who's likely not to be in Canada, would you advise we still subscribe to the health plan? So they're all subscribed and then they have to opt out. Is that what I remember?
Yeah, so in order to ensure that our international students are safe and have coverage, the idea is that we would enroll everyone by August 31st, just to make sure that, you know, anyone that is here does have the coverage. And then you opt out. And you know, if you're planning on coming in the winter or in May, you can reach out to UHIP at trentu.ca and ask to enroll. We likely will have a process to deal with this again come the winter term, you know, provide an opt-out date or an early opt-in date. So just stay tuned for that information. We'll make sure that we get you enrolled when you do come here, but we obviously don't want students to be paying for health insurance if you're not here. So I wouldn't recommend it if you're not in Ontario. You can opt out and we'll get you opt-in when the time comes, when you do arrive.
And you're only there if they're a registered student. That's right. When they are. So Samuel, I'm not sure of your status at this time. We can talk more after the call if you want, but I'm not sure if you are definitely as a registered student. Registration for grad students started August 1st. So we can look at your status afterwards, or maybe you have more to add, Aaron, but if you're registered, everything Jess said applies if you're a registered student. So if you haven't quite accepted your offer or been registered, what she said wouldn't apply.
Exactly.
We can talk later. Or so there's another question there from Kyle. Will my GTA funding still count towards the minimum funds set by IRCC if I have not received my study permit yet?
It's a good question. So as most of you know, when you apply for your study permit, you have to prove that you have the funds to pay for 1 year of your education. So tuition plus $10,000 Canadian for living expenses. So if you have been offered GTA funding and you have that in an offer letter, you can totally use that as evidence to support your application, provided that you're eligible for the funding. IRCC, to put it briefly, I mean, IRCC just wants a surety that the students who are coming are able to afford to be here. That's kind of the main thing. They're not going to police the nuance of when you're going to start your GTA and when you're going to start your degree. They know everything is delayed due to COVID. So yeah, if you've been offered funding, include that in your financial explanation, and then it'll be treated as if you're going to have that money when you start.
Are there any other questions by any of the students out there?
Well, did such a good job of answering them all.
Yeah.
I think many of these students have asked the questions already because people are very proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess if there's no other questions, was there more? Can I bring a card to Canada?
I'm presuming that this is an American or maybe a Mexican who's up for a big road trip.
I think Kyle's from America. Yeah.
It's possible to bring a car from the United States to Canada. I'm not exactly sure about your insurance coverage and everything, so you may as well check with your insurance company and make sure that everything's going to stay valid when you're out of the country for that extended period of time. But yes, there's lots of American license plates driving around Peterborough and Toronto these days.
Any further questions? Okay, well, I guess that's it for today. Thank you so much, Paul and Jessica, for hosting this session for us. It was very useful. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned in the beginning, we have recorded this session. It will be posted on our orientation page, hopefully today or tomorrow, for anyone that wants to refer back to the emails or contacts or any of the information that was provided in the PowerPoint or anything that was said. It will be posted. So
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And like I said, we have 3 more sessions coming up next week, or 4 more sessions, I guess, on finance. And their big overall main official orientation takes place on Wednesday, August 26th, which I guess is just a couple of hours before you have an event with the TGSA at 1 o'clock. So that'll be a big day for grad students. Lots of orientating and welcoming happening. So, okay, well, take care, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully we will meet you soon, virtually and in person too.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yep. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.